Hey, this is Danny Cannell, and you're listening to the Grueling Truth Network.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris back here with you again. A week of the Big Red Cross is basically what baseball has become this week during the Major League Baseball season. Chris, man, this has been an odd injury week, don't you think?
Yeah, it's been odd is probably a good word for it. There's been an injury this week that I don't think I've ever seen during the regular season. And I'm not saying it's never happened. It's just not something I've ever seen happen during the regular season. And then a couple of more that are just like, didn't you just get off the DL for this? Why did you come back if you weren't ready?
Exactly. So as we put the ball in play on the Red Cross edition of Out of Left Field this week, reminder, guys, we are brought to you by the Grueling Truth Network. Be sure to check out thegruelingtruth.net. The NBA draft just around the corner. If you're like me and enjoying a little bit of the Stanley Cup playoffs as well, or if you just want to know why in the hell J.R. Smith played make it, take it, because the ball hit the rim, he took it to the top of the key instead of shooting it in the NBA Finals, go over to thegruelingtruth.net. Also check out our social media pages at OO Left Field on Twitter and Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. So we will start with we're not going to start. We're just going to get it the hell out of the way.
Right.
Let's go to San Francisco. I actually have heard of players having emergency appendicitis surgery. Actually, I think we had one, might even been in baseball in the last 2 or 3 years. But Brandon Belt left with abdominal pain. Turned out his appendix was in need of removal from his body. And they went ahead and removed it. He is expected to be out for a little bit. You think? Nah, hey, Skip, I'm good. Just had my stomach cut open, but I'll be swinging the stick tomorrow.
And here's the problem. So they put him on the 10-day disabled list because obviously they got to wait until they get an update from the doctor letting him know how long he's going to be out. I think what they're looking at this point is 4 to 6 weeks, which is bad for the Giants because right now Brandon Belt is having a career year for him. He's hitting .307. He's got 11 dingers, 31 ribbies. He's playing better than he's played in a long time, and he's playing far more consistently than he's played in a long time. And I really hate to see him sit out that amount of time at this point where he's really kind of got the stick working.
And, of course, it has to happen right when Mad Bum is due back on Tuesday the 5th. He will make his first start in the big leagues this year, and obviously spring training notwithstanding. So a team who is tied up with the Dodgers right now. Of course, we will touch on the standings, our top 5, bottom 3, and we will start off our power rankings for the month this show as well. This was a chance really for the Giants to try and put some space in between them and the Dodgers. Why? Well, because another guy, a pitcher, is back on the DL. We will discuss that coming up here on the show in just a few minutes. But, yeah, man, I hate to see it. You and I both made the comment when I said, they're bringing Melanson off the DL. I'll let you know when I care. And he said, yeah, I'll let you know the same thing. You know, the Bumgarner activation is the biggest thing, of course, losing Belt in this time when you're still trying to gel this new veteran core of Longo and McCutchen as well with Posey. It's one of the worst times to lose him. Hopefully they can get it back a little bit sooner. But it's one of those when you just had that removed, the last thing you want to do is run the possibility of him taking a fastball to the ribs or that part of his body, or having to dive one way or the other and putting a lot of pressure on it, causing something more internally to be wrong long term.
Or even the simple act of swinging a baseball bat with any kind of power is going to be bad for the abdomen. And there's a lot of core muscles involved in swinging a baseball bat. It's not just legs and arms. So, speedy recovery to him as we move on. Another big hitting leader type guy goes down goes onto the 10-day DL. Thankfully, it's not worse than it could have been. But Mookie Betts,
that was a beautiful job of understatement right there. I mean, leadership time. I mean, yeah, I couldn't say, AL MVP favorite, batting. I mean, no, just a leader type of guy. I like that. I appreciate the, you're trying to keep his head small. I like that.
I mean, he's only hitting 359 with 19 doubles, a triple.
He dropped below 360? The hell with that. Yeah, he's just a leader guy.
So he's just a kind of a leader guy, yeah.
I'm sorry, below 360, forget I said all that. So, I apologize for busting your chops.
Let me try this again. One of the best hitters in the American League has now gone on the 10-day DL, and it's a big deal, I think, for the Boston Red Sox. This is going to hurt them moving forward, especially as they're playing division games right now, and they need to keep as close to the New York Yankees as possible. Again, they're only behind the New York Yankees by virtue of the fact that the Yankees have played fewer games.
And of all times for this injury to have to happen, for this DL stint to have to happen, of course, it happens at the beginning of a series between who? None other than the defending World Series champions in the Houston Astros, a time when you want Mookie Betts' bat in that lineup, to try and maybe have a chance of getting to Garrett Cole or Justin Verlander, who we'll discuss here in a little bit on the show. It's a good thing. It's only a 10-day DL, but it's an abdominal strain, and those are one of those things that anytime it's a strain, or as you mentioned, a core strain, I think we've mentioned this probably ad nauseum to some folks on the show, and you said it, that it's not just legs and arms. It shouldn't be just legs and arms. It's why when I remember seeing an interview with Miguel Cabrera, why he struggled so much and struck out a lot last year when he was trying to go up the ladder and use the top part of the zone and trying to expand his strike zone, because it was all just a lot of moving his arms. He didn't have enough pop behind it. It's why your hips and your abdominals and your obliques are usually the injuries that you can, that occur in the batter's box unless you either get hit or you foul a pitch off of your body somewhere.
Right.
So I think, and you said it, the biggest concern is going to be how well does he transition back into the lineup, not because of time off, but how much does the injury hamper him? If there's one silver lining to this, it's the fact that the Red Sox have JD Martinez. I mean, right.
That
makes it at least not the most damning injury onto a season that it could have been.
No, and that's exactly right. And JD Martinez, while he's not a defensive powerhouse, he is definitely showing that he is a powerhouse at the plate. He is just crushing the ball right now. Unfortunately, a guy who is a defensive powerhouse, who we thought it was going to be very important for the Red Sox to get back, is Dustin Pedroia, who is now gone again.
Right.
And yeah, I think Betts and Pedroia at the same time, not a good combination.
No, I mean, the Pedroia thing is more just frustration than it is a bad issue. I mean, he's been back for, 4 games, and he's back on again. And you and I kind of laughed about this, but this is one of those DL moves that, I mean, we're not surprised by.
Right.
Pedroia had a knee injury. What happened? His knee inflamed. He hasn't used that knee in a true baseball sense, in a game type atmosphere in 3 or 4 months. So, this is one of those things. And I think from now on, it's probably going to be the way that you and I see it, which might sound kind of cynical and jaded, but I think it's more accurate than people want to admit, that when you come back from usually a knee injury or, you tweaked your back, a back strain. Okay, so we're going to bring him off the DL just to see where he's at, and then he'll go back on when something gets kind of flared up or stiff or sore again.
Well, and
that's basically what happened here.
This is where that rule change from last year really allows teams more freedom to do things like this, going from a 15-day DL to a 10-day DL, because now you can take a guy and be like, oh, well, he's going to go on the 10-day, or he's coming off the 60-day DL. We're going to play him a game or two to see how he's doing, and then throw him on the 10-day DL. He'll miss 5-6 games, and then he'll come back, and hopefully he'll be healthy then. Instead of a 15-day DL where he might miss 10, 11, 12 games,
right?
And really shorten the season up.
Right. Hopefully on a stint like this, you are just missing 6, 7 games. Although we both know that the way the schedule is made up, you could miss 10,
Right.
You could miss 15 on the old schedule. It's why – and that was a great piece. And I saw somebody graded, I think it was on an umpire group, so they're but as jaded as they come. But guys said that Rob Manfred is so bad for baseball because he was talking about the electronic strike zone, which is not the topic of today's show, but just to give you some context to the comment. But how awful is having a lawyer run baseball? No. Manfred is progressive. He's a good commissioner. And making a change like that was great for teams because it allows the game to stay competitive because you can fill that roster spot with somebody from your minor league system, and then teams are much more willing to put guys on. I mean, the whole thing is, you don't want to have that fraudulent, for lack of a better term, use of the DL system, or in some cases, not using the DL. I think it was a good.
And one of the important things about that rule change and allowing them to use minor league guys to bring up is you're not optioning guys out of their contracts,
right?
Which has been an issue in the past. It used to be 3. You could get optioned 3 times down, and then you're done.
Right.
And now that you have this system where you have this expanded roster where you can bring guys up and send guys back down, basically for free. It helps minor league guys who are on the cusp. It helps big league guys who need to recover a little bit more. I think it's better for baseball. I absolutely do.
Yeah, I mean, and the option rule is still there, but it's in a different capacity now where bringing a guy up just to fill in for a couple of days is not viewed as well, crap, we're going to bring you up, but if we got to bring you up 2 more times, we're going to let you go. No, it's, hey, we think enough of you that we're going to go ahead and have you fill in for a week. Make your mark, be a Cody Bellinger, make your mark, and all of a sudden you may end up having a contract the rest of the year.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely is something that is that important. And it is tough seeing Pedroia go down like this. We've already said this, and we're going to discuss this again in just a few minutes, but, you begin to feel like, and he's been playing for 13 seasons now, we're kind of seeing the demise happen before our eyes. Right. I mean, he's contracted through 2021. He is owed $16 million this year, $15 million next year, $13 million in 2020, and $12 million in 2021. Nothing that I see based off of Baseball Reference, which is a great place to find salaries and whatnot, have anything about a player or a club option built in there.
Yeah.
So he is still owed about $40 million over the next.
And realistically, if Boston wants to take a pragmatic approach, he's one of those guys that when he does come back, you might see off-season moves made to see if they can move him somewhere because they need to get a young guy in that spot. They need to get a young guy with a similar bat who can move in and be the guy at that position going forward, because if Boston's not careful, they're going to find themselves in the position of, your window's closing and you're not winning any championships. So you need to do something about it.
Right. A guy who has really, aside from his first year in 2006 when he played 31 games and hit 191, he's been a pretty much 300 hitter, kind of just sitting around that spot his entire career. Lowest of his average of his career was in 2014. He played 135 games and hit 278. Granted, he was injured in 2015 and then also this year, but a guy who we have seen play a pretty good chunk of games. So, it's one of those things. I hope that the Red Sox can work a deal out with him. If they decide, hey, this is where it's going, do you want to keep trying to play? I would hope that if it comes down to that point, that Pedroia sees the writing on the wall and makes a choice to go ahead and retire and, be a part of the organization, whatever he wants to do. But he's one of those guys who you really hope would stay a Red Sox player for life. Very rarely do we see guys in the same uniform forever, and I hope that the Laser Show is definitely going to be one of those guys. So, Chris, let's go ahead and step into our MLB standings. Take a look up and down the standings in both leagues. we'll go through our top 5, bottom 3, and then move on to news similar to the Pedroia news that is much more hair-raising for the team involved. Looking through the American League, man, the American League East is going to be the most enjoyable and exciting division to watch this year. No doubt you've got the Yankees and the Red Sox just trading. I mean, at this point, man, I get it. Everyone says the baseball season is a marathon. You and I have said it a million times. 162 games. These guys are trading freaking haymakers. This isn't a body shot. Let me hit you. No, this is I'm going to punch you in the mouth. I'm going to try and knock you out, even though we're only, less than 60 games into the year. I mean, it is just that. It's just that big. And it makes for some really, really, really good baseball. But the Yankees sit on top by a half game. Like you said, they haven't played as many games as the Red Sox. They have 36 wins. The Sox with 39 wins, the most wins in the big leagues. The Rays still sitting there at 500, man, 28-28. He's not going to win it this year, but Kevin Cash deserves a hell of a tip of the cap at the end of the year for Manager of the Year. I hope he gets an honorable mention or at least gets a couple of votes, because what he has done with a team that shed everything. And then the players they traded Longoria for Denard Span and another player. Denard Span already got traded. So he's doing a great job with that ball club. The Blue Jays sit at 25-33. Josh Donaldson onto the 10-day DL. The Orioles are absolutely horrific this year at 17-40. The Indians still sit on top.
Hold on now. Wait a minute. They're not horrific. They're the first team to 40. Oh, 40 losses. Never mind. They're horrific.
Yeah. If you could just go ahead and mute that microphone, that would be swell. The Indians sit on top of the American League Central because the rest of the division is pretty junky. 30-27, the Tigers, 28-30. They're 2.5 games back. Man, the Tigers are a team that I think you and I both, when we get into our power rankings, are going to be one of those kind of a team who we don't have great hopes for, but they are surprising in that they're playing at least somewhat well this year, better than I think we expected. Or is that more because maybe the Twins sit at 24-30 and are playing not at all well? The Twins are playing more like the team we thought they would have been last year, right? It's a sad thing to say, but the Twins are who we thought they were, and last year weren't who we thought they were. It was more of an anomaly. The Royals and the White Sox ran out the bottom. Nothing really to see here. I really hope that Mike Moustakas gets a trade come deadline time, because you are wasting a great, a year of this guy's prime right now in Kansas City. The Astros and the Mariners sit 1-2. Mariners a game back, 35-22. Man, I am really impressed that they did not fold with the Cano suspension. This bodes well for Scott Service and that ball club, because you're not going to have Cano when it comes time for the playoffs, and you are proving that you can win. The Angels have fallen a little bit further back. They are 4.5 games back. I'm sorry, 3.5 games back of the Mariners, 5.5 back of the Stros. The Oakland A's, a game above 500, but still a really good team. The Athletics, rather, I'm sorry. And then the Rangers, we've said it enough. The Rangers are just a team who I think we're going to see wholesale changes. Ruth Odor will stay because you paid him a ton of money and he hasn't done junk. Cole Hamels likely to go. I think that would make sense. I think Adrian Beltre would waive his no-trade clause, should waive his no-trade clause, and hopefully get somewhere where he can get a ring before he goes ahead and hangs up those spikes at the end of a Hall of Fame career. Man, the National League, it's the National League may not have the two same powerhouse teams like the American League East, but it's got some good baseball all the way up and down those three divisions.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Atlanta sitting on top of the East. I think that you and I have been probably less kind to Atlanta despite their first place status than maybe we need to be.
It's hard to believe. I mean, I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I feel like both feet are actually on the floor, and I just don't believe it yet.
If Fultonevich continues to pitch the way he's been pitching, he's going to be the ace of that staff for a while, and definitely the ace that they need. But the other shoe in the form of the Washington Nationals might be on its way down, because the Nationals are 7-3 in their last 10. They're starting to play like a big league ball club again. They're starting to play like the team that should be in charge of that division again. And if
Max Scherzer keeps pitching like he is, he could be the ace of that ball club.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think that's in dispute at this point.
Hot take right there.
But the Nationals are at 32-24. They're a game and a half out of first place and just ramping it up. And they're actually playing Atlanta right now. The Phils, man. I'm still surprised with the Phils. 31-24, sitting in third place, but only 2 games out of that division, and still playing well. They're 4-6 in their last 10, but they're playing the Giants tonight, and they're a good ball club. The Mets aren't. Right. Now, to be fair, Jacob deGrom does have the second best ERA in baseball at 1.5. But that's
awesome. The problem is he's a guy who plays once every 5 days, and that's always been our biggest thing.
From there, it gets way worse.
Yeah.
And then the Marlins are exactly who we thought the Marlins were going to be. Although I didn't think they were going to be a 20-win team. So there's that. The Brew Crew.
You know what's ironic, as you mentioned that, is that even by record, they're 4 games apart. But in the way that you described the Mets rotation, it is not at all far off from what the Cubs rotation really is. Lester has one of the best, one of the best ERAs in the game,
right?
And then everybody else does.
Yeah, they're just terrible. They're absolutely terrible. The Brew Crew is actually in charge of the National League right now, 37-22, sitting well ahead, 3.5 games ahead, in fact, of the Chicago Cubs in the Central. The Chicago Cubs are only a game up on St. Louis for the second place. Both teams with 31 wins. The Cubs with 23 losses. The Cardinals with 25. In my opinion, like you said, the starting rotation for that Cubs team is not good. I expect to see the Cardinals take that second spot from them.
I want to ask you a question. As a player, and I know what I think just as a fan. Umpire has no real bearing in this question, but as a player, did the run that the Brewers went on last year, even though they ended up coming short of the playoffs because of just how good the NL West was last season, does what they did play into that big of a factor into this year? The fact that they could hold their own in that division with the Cubs, where the Cubs were kind of, and we both saw it last year, they're kind of fledgling a little bit. They weren't the same team who had won the World Series the year before. And this year, I get you, they grabbed Kane, they got Yelich, but they seem so much more comfortable for a team who has been just kind of bottom feeding for the last 3, 4, 5, really since Prince Fielder left. They've been kind of bottom feeding. You had obviously Fielder, Sabathia. I think you had Greinke there at the same time. But they seem as a young ball club really, really comfortable in that top spot.
And not just comfortable, but confident. And yes. I think that yes, that run that they went on at the end of last season absolutely plays into it, because it gives them that confidence to say, you know what? We're a better team than them. We are a better team than Chicago Cubs. All we have to do is play like we're a better team. And they have been. And they absolutely have been.
On the flip side, the Cubs have played like they're a team who are not as good as the Brewers. So, I mean, right. But I wanted to, I guess I've never really seen it, or experienced the game from that side quite the way that you had. And I would imagine that it would. It would seem logical that it would.
Right. Well, and when you finish a season winning ball games against teams in your division, and they went on that run at a time when it was the end of the season, and they had to go on that run in the Central for the most part, and they beat the Cubs, and they beat the Cardinals, and they beat the Pirates, and it's unfair to say that they beat the Reds, but they did.
Well, I mean, it was one of those things last year where really their destiny was out of their hands. So it's also, hey guys, we did everything we had to do to be in the right position. The Diamondbacks and the Rockies just didn't lose.
Right.
I mean,
they just
we can't control that, but
right.
everything that they could control, they did. I think that's why, again, that to me is why Craig Counsell and Brian Snitker should be on short list for Manager of the Year this year.
Pittsburgh is making a real case for them to be a real deal team at this point. They're 30-28. They
lost Garrett Cole.
And they lost Garrett Cole.
That's what really blows my mind on this ball club this year.
Can you imagine? They would probably be 30. They probably have 35 wins if they still had Garrett Cole on that team.
That was I was going the same spot. Yeah, it's crazy.
And Cincinnati is still in Cincinnati. The Reds are still there. They're not exactly playing baseball, but they're still in Cincinnati.
No, they are still the Red Legs. You are correct. They are still the Reds.
Yes. Not necessarily a baseball team, but they're holding their own at the bottom. Colorado.
They're so bad, even your dog barked at them.
I know. I said Cincinnati. She lost her mind. Colorado is in charge of the the National League West. Colorado's in charge of the National League West, but
breaking news number 2: the Rockies have shifted divisions.
At this point, that doesn't mean anything.
No.
That entire division is separated by 6 games, and it's really only because it's not a very good division. They have 30 wins. The Diamondbacks have 29 wins. The Dodgers and the Giants are both at 27 and 30, and San Diego has 25 wins. So realistically, when your number 1 team is only 6 games ahead of the San Diego Padres, it's not a great division.
Yeah, it's oddly, I would say it's tie. I mean, the division we thought would be the most powerful is actually probably the 5th worst division in baseball.
Right. And the division we thought was going to be the 5th worst?
Yeah. No. The AL Central is still the worst just because you've got so many teams that aren't competitive. But the West right now, it is. I mean, it's both those divisions are the only 2 in baseball that have only one 30-win team. Both teams had just scraped past 30 wins. I mean, could you imagine if we were this far into the year, into June, and we had a division, even if it was just one division, with a ball club that hadn't cracked 30 yet?
Yeah. And the crazy thing is that we're talking about a division who last year had 4 of its 5 teams playing 500 ball, and this year has 2 of its 5 teams playing 500 ball. And then in the East, a division who last year had 1 team playing 500 ball and now has 3 teams playing 500 ball.
I mean, if we stop and legitimately look at this, if we were to move, kind of like what they've talked about doing in the NBA, and you were to go away from the divisions and just take top 6 teams or top 5 teams from each league, divisions be damned, we would right now be looking at the AL Central and the NL West both not being represented by any ball club in the playoffs.
Yes.
Just based off of record alone, neither of those divisions would have a team to make the postseason. Just to kind of put in perspective, into context, how poorly both these divisions look against the overall magnitude of what MLB is this year.
Right.
So you mentioned, I mean, we go down the line, and it sits, like you said, with the D-backs and then the Dodgers, Giants, and Padres. But the scary thing here is that while we mentioned the Giants have a chance to move up because the Bumgarner returns, and we're thinking, okay, hey, the Dodgers should be making a move because Justin Turner's back, Kershaw comes back, and Kershaw is back. on the DL because of his back. Again.
And here's the problem. And we talked about this yesterday when we were talking about, I think it was yesterday, we were talking about Kershaw and going back on the DL and what it means, not just for the Dodgers, but what it means for Clayton Kershaw. Because this is now 3 years. Our first year of the show, he got hurt. He had the back injury.
Yep.
The next year, he had the back injury again. And now this year again, he has the back injury again.
Right. And even though last year it was not supposed to be the injury that it wasn't the same injury, and then beginning of the year was bicep tendonitis, it still keeps going back to his back, no pun intended.
Right.
And I asked you, at what point do we use the two words that you'd never want to hear when you're a player? Injury prone.
Right. Is this going to be who Clayton Kershaw is? He's going to be the greatest pitcher who never got to prove that he was.
Man, I hope not. But at this point, I watched the game he came back. Velocity was okay, low 90s. Curveball,
which is off for him.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I say okay. It wasn't where it needs to be, but it was, hey, I haven't pitched in months. Curveball was hanging. He wasn't burying it down. Gave up some really solid hits off that curveball. Ended up only giving up one run. But yeah, the back tightened up. And it ends up being, I think, a back strain, what the MRI showed. And he will go on to the DL for the 10-day DL. But, man, so here's the thing with Matt, and I say this just in watching Madison Bumgarner, because he's so tall and he's lanky. He pitches in a very similar way to Randy Johnson. Johnson was 6'10". It was always that long arm kind of 3/4 whipping around. That's what you saw. With Kershaw, he damn near falls off the mound every pitch because when he throws, I mean, he almost dips his head down to where his arm's almost scraping the dirt. He is a very, he really is a very full-bodied pitcher, I think, for lack of the best way I can describe it. Kind of like the way that Jake Peavy was, where he had that wild leg whip.
Right.
And because of how much of his body that you can clearly see Kershaw use, I'm not saying other guys don't do that, but you can so clearly see how much he does use. It makes me worried for his long-term ability to stay healthy. I get, he pitches once every 5 days, but you could usually count that as a win. Now you've got a team who's 3 games below 500, and the one guy that you need back, who is supposed to be that guy that walks out there, and even though you should always be confident, you look out there going, all right, we can go ahead and change that W column.
Yeah,
you can't anymore.
No, and it's true, and one of the problems is that this is going to hurt Kershaw's own legacy. Because, and I sort of tried to allude to this the other day when I was saying that, he's already a little tainted because of his postseason performance.
Right.
But you add to that the fact that he now maybe can't get through a season where he's only pitching 19, 20 games because he can't get through a season without his back tightening up or getting a DL stint. And now 1.9, 2.2, those sort of ERA numbers don't really mean anything after 18 or 19 games.
Right.
I mean, they're good, but how good is it if he's not pitching 30 or 35? And that's going to hurt him. That's going to be the kind of thing that keeps Clayton Kershaw out of the Hall of Fame. And I think that without the back injury, Clayton Kershaw is absolutely a Hall of Fame pitcher. I
think he already is that. I disagree with the premise that this will keep him out of Cooperstown. But I think the difficulty here is that if this ball club can continue to make the postseason, to me, the difficulty becomes how much in his mind does this injury begin to play into his struggles and inabilities in the postseason. Now you've already got a guy who's in his head because, man, I just can't stay healthy. I want to get through this postseason. I want to get in here. I want to show I still got it. Now he's putting more pressure on himself. The only saving grace out of that scenario would be Dave Roberts hopefully having the wisdom to have a tighter leash on Kershaw when things begin to, maybe get a little bit squirrely. But at the end of the day, you're always going to go, man, hey, he's still Clayton Kershaw. Yeah, his name is still Clayton Kershaw. He is not the same MVP winning Clayton Kershaw.
No, he's definitely not. And, looking back, 2015 is the last time we see Clayton Kershaw throw in 30 games. He threw in 33 games. And it's the last time we see him pitch 200-plus innings. 2016, he threw 21 games. He pitched 149 innings. Last year, he threw in 27 games, but only pitched 175 innings. This year so far, he's only thrown 49 innings in 8 games. Now, when you look at those numbers, yes, I agree. I wasn't trying to say that I don't think Clayton Kershaw is going to Cooperstown. But is Clayton Kershaw, if he spends after the first 8 years were Hall of Fame worthy, the next 3 years definitely were not. If he spends 3 or 4 more years having those not Hall of Fame worthy numbers because of this back injury, Clayton Kershaw doesn't go to the Hall of Fame. 3 Cy Youngs and an MVP or not, Clayton Kershaw doesn't go to the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And he is a first ballot Hall of Fame caliber player. And that is what I'm talking about when I say I'm worried that being injury prone is going to hurt his legacy. He's definitely never going to win him a World Series.
It will hurt his legacy. I have no qualms with you on that. Do I think it keeps him out from first ballot? Man, if you look at something that's out of his control like that, and the writers penalize him in that way, at the end of the day, he was a once-in-a-generational type pitcher. And we are making the assumption that injuries will derail the continuation of his career. He's still only 30 years old. And I guess I see what you're saying. I don't agree that it would keep him out of a first ballot, but what I will tell you is my hope would be that if the injuries happen and he can find a way, I would love to see a resurgence from him like a Justin Verlander. And I want to see him make it back to the World Series. I would love to see him stay with the Dodgers.
Or even what he did last year where he came back from that back injury and went 18-4 with a 2.31 ERA. If we get that Clayton Kershaw back, I mean, he finished second in the Cy Young voting last year despite missing 6 or 7 games.
Even getting to 10 wins this year for him would be good.
Right, because one of the things is that last year before the injury, last year after the injury, he was still almost unbeatable.
Right.
This year, he has been the opposite of that. Exactly.
Let's go real quick into our top 5, bottom 3 before we touch on a gentleman that is, well, he's pitching like he's 29 again, and he is definitely not 29. But top 5, bottom 3. Again, guys, remember, this is just based off of the week. Our top 5 teams, bottom 3 teams, basically between the last show and this show. Our power rankings are going to be different. That is a much broader view. Chris, my top 5, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Brewers, the Mariners, the Nationals putting themselves firmly into my top 5. We're seeing, like you said, that team I think will be sniffing the top of that division soon. The Braves better get ready for a slugfest. Bottom three, the Orioles, the Blue Jays, and the Marlins. It's an East feasting bottom three.
I am in complete agreement with you, not necessarily in the order of my top five, but definitely in the teams that are on it: Boston, New York, Seattle, Washington, and Milwaukee, rounding out the top five. My bottom three, I think what the Blue Jays are doing is terrible, and you definitely have an argument there. But for right now, Chicago remains on my bottom three, so I'm going to go Chicago, Baltimore,
The White Sox.
Miami. Yeah, the White Sox.
The AL Chicago.
Right. To be fair, if the Cubbies start doing any worse than they are right now, they might find themselves down there as well.
Snap. Cubs are on notice from Chris Furry.
Yeah, I'm sure they're scared. But yeah, so I'm pretty much pat with you there. I mean, what the top five teams are doing is just fun to watch. What the bottom five teams are doing, or what the bottom three teams are doing, is fun to ignore. So, yeah. But I told you at the beginning, before we started the show, that we have to talk very briefly about Justin Verlander.
Oh, you mean the AL Cy Young winner this year?
Yes, that's the Justin Verlander, the guy who is pitching in his 14th season at the age of 35, and is currently 7-2 in 12 starts with a 1.1 ERA in 81 innings pitched and a walk and hits per innings pitched of .713.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right? He's currently the number one pitcher in the league in terms of ERA. He's also got 98 strikeouts to 15 walks.
And he's beaned four guys.
And he has beaned four guys. I mean, it happens.
I think, and to me, this is really where what I love seeing from him is that in 12 games that he has started, mentioned pitching 81.1 innings, that puts him just shy of 7 innings per game. So to see a guy at 35 getting a quality start in virtually every game he pitches and winning, 7 out of those 12 and only has a loss, so we're still looking at 5 no decisions. I mean, it's, he's given up 5 home runs the entire year. The lowest total of his career was in 2015. He gave up 13. That's because he only played in 20 games. The lowest total of home runs in a year off of a full season that he had was 14, and that was in 2010 when he was 27. So, I mean, this is really one of those years where he is just, man, he seems happy in Houston, which is weird. I mean, because Houston is very much a hitter's park. They got rid of the hill in center field finally, thankfully. But when he went to Houston last year after the trade, he was 5-0 with an ERA of 1.06.
Right.
So I don't know what it is, if it's a change, but he just seems comfortable there.
So, and that was my question. Remember in a couple of years back when we were first in the show, we were talking about Detroit, talking about whether Detroit's window was closing or not. And you kept saying, well, you can't say it's or it's closed because they still have Justin Verlander. And I said, yeah, but how long is that going to last? Because as you look, the number of innings that he's pitching is creeping down, and the number, or the ERA, is creeping up, and he's getting old. He's starting to feel his age, and then he gets traded to the Astros, and it's like they were like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take Justin Verlander and we're going to shed 10 years off of his actual age, and he's going to like he's 25 for us.
Well, to your point, I mean, pitched 238 innings in 2012. That dropped to 218 in 2013. Granted, the same number of games, 34 games, so they just pitched him less, but he was 13-12 that year. Then 206 innings in 2014. And injury-riddled 2015, 133 innings, then pitched 227 innings in 16. That was kind of the resurgence with Michael Fulmer we talked about, 15-8. Then last year, pitched 227 in 16, 206 last year between Detroit and Houston. Man, I mean, he just seems like I don't know what it is, man. I don't get it.
Are we possibly looking at a Justin Verlander who wins more than 20 games again?
I think so this year, yeah. I mean, because he has a team around him that can actually pick him up. In the way that this is one of those teams that, man, they're a buzzsaw. Hey, I mean, the odd thing is, we used to think, man, you got to face Keuchel and McCullers. Thank God we got to face Keuchel and McCullers.
Right.
Damn it, we got to face Cole and Verlander. I mean, we didn't see this coming. We talked about last year. I told you that was the piece I thought would go. I thought Verlander might have gone to L.A. I think he's in a great spot for it, man. I mean, Houston is, it's still a big city, but I think it's a town that holds tight to their sports. I didn't think he would have this kind of career resurgence, but by God, it is happening, and it is happening with a vengeance.
One interesting thing is an interesting stat from last year is you look at him in Detroit, and he starts 28 games, and he only gets decisions in 18 of them. He has 10 no decisions in Detroit. Comes to
and only 10 wins.
And only 10 wins. Comes to Houston, starts 5 games, finishes, gets decisions in 5 games, wins 5 games.
And again, 34 innings pitched in 5 games puts him just an inning shy of 7 per.
Right.
Now, maybe this is the beauty of sabermetrics and the numbers now. This year, he has 1 complete game. It was a shutout so far. But even then, I mean, it's just – this is one of those things, man. I mean, maybe the numbers really are showing A.J. Hinch, hey, he's effective up to this point. We take him out, let the pen finish it off, and it seems to be working. Because, they have a pen who knows they were able to survive an onslaught last year from L.A. in the World Series and hang that banner up after a just – horrible year for the city last year, and they managed to win a championship. Now this is a team who knows they belong, knows they can win it, and now knows how to win it.
He does have a complete game shutout this year, which is something he has not done. He hasn't even had a complete game since 2016.
And had a shutout in 2015. Complete game shutout since 2015. Yeah.
So. I mean, yeah, I think Hinch knows how to manage this guy, but I just think that I don't know what I think about Justin Verlander, man. I'm
going to ask you one last question before we move on to
is the new marriage the fountain of youth for him, or?
I will ask you one baseball related question, not to that point before we move on to the beginnings of our power rankings. But do you think that going to a team with a guy who, as I've talked a couple times, and just a great dude, but going to a team with a veteran guy like Brian McCann, granted McCann's on the DL right now, but having a veteran catcher like that catching you compared to a relatively young James McCann or Alex Avila when he was still in Detroit, do you think that is still a part of where this is coming from? Is having that veteran presence who's been in the league a decade plus and has, played for the Yankees, played for the Braves, handled some big name pitchers,
and is no slouch at calling a game.
No, absolutely not. And a Forest 3 wearer, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it has something to do with it, because he is definitely one of the great game managers, field generals in baseball. And I think that absolutely does have not only something to do with how successful Verlander's been, but also how comfortable he feels.
Right.
Because he knows that he's going to throw to a catcher who can call a game and get around hard situations, get around big hitters, knows where to throw them, knows how to throw them. Yeah, I think so, absolutely.
So time has come. Let's go ahead and break out our first official power rankings that we've ever done on Out of Left Field. How far you want to go, man? Do we want to go ahead and take it just to 15, or want to go ahead and go over the whole thing and then have some fun with it throughout the? How do you want to do this? This is how we produce the show live for you, because we just didn't think this far ahead before we decided to jump on.
I think we should probably split it into three different.
So 1 to 10,
segments.
11 to 20, 21 to 30.
Yeah.
So I apologize in 2 weeks for those of you who had to hear 21 to 30 and hear just how bad we think those teams are. All right, so let's go ahead. You and I had our own lists, which I think were pretty similar. And one of those times where really, we enjoy it when we have a reason to argue. This is one of those moments where we really kind of worked together on this, and I think put together a really a really strongly comprehensive list. I probably said that way wrong and made no sense in that, but hey, it is what it is. All right, so number 1, Boston Red Sox.
Not even a question.
They added the JD Martinez. They have the right guys. Chris Sale's still there, and Sale doesn't have the best year. Drew Pomeranz right now, if they can either get him right or get someone to fill his shoes and add one more strong pitcher to that rotation, man, that is going to be a scary team.
And to clarify, when we make a power ranking, what we're doing is we're deciding if the season ended today, what team do we feel has the best opportunity to win the World Series?
Yes.
So Boston.
Which, by the way, Pomeranz is 1-3 with a 6.81 ERA.
That's not good.
No.
But right now, Boston is the obvious choice. Houston, being the reigning world champions and also well in control of their division, is number 2 on that list. I think that New York Yankees being at number 3 on that list makes perfect sense as well. And realistically, in the American League, the only team that I think is going to beat any of those 3 in the playoffs
is one of those.
Those 3.
Yeah, it's gonna be a slugfest, and it's the reason why you hate that. I wish we could find a way to have like a round robin between these 3 teams, and let that decide who the AL champion is. Because it's one of these teams has to lose going into the ALCS, but it will probably be against one of those, which is helpful at least.
Right.
The Brewers, man, that team, we discussed it earlier. They are confident where they are. They're comfortable. They know they belong. The Braves, they're here, man, and I think they're here to stay. This is a year that John Smoltz told us was going to be coming. Thought it was going to be last season. Ends up being this year. But, hey, they're ready to go. The team that we both kind of –
I'll tell you this much, though.
Sure.
The Braves are going to have to do it in the next year or 2 if they're going to get it done. Otherwise, their window is going to shut.
You think so?
I do.
Because of who, the Phillies?
Because of teams like the Phillies, because of teams like Seattle, the A's even.
Yeah, that's a different story. The Indians at 6, and that was a hard one because the Indians are not playing the way that we expect, but they're still going to win that division. And I just have enough faith in Francona that he can lead that team to where they need to be.
My bad. I was talking about the Indians, not the Braves.
Okay, well done. Same. Yeah. No. See, the Braves got rid of the racist caricature. The Indians still have it on their uniforms. There's a difference. Okay.
But it's the Indians who are going to have to get it done. Going deep into the playoffs 2 years in a row, getting bounced out 2 years in a row. They're going to have to get it done.
Last year should be a wake-up call that you are not – Corey Kluber cannot take you where you need to go. He was awful last year in the divisional series. Number 7, and this is a team we've been if we had done this list last month, they'd have been nowhere near this spot. That's the Nationals, man.
Yep.
They look solid. Harper is going to try and make his own case for $500 million. I don't think he deserves it.
No.
But he is a hot shot player. He is a superstar player, but he to me is a superstar player who needs help around him.
Right. And the thing is that big names coming off of the DL is the help around him that he's getting now, and
right.
why he's heating up and why the Nationals are winning games. There's also another guy that's a reason why Nationals are winning games. We mentioned him a couple of times so far. Max Scherzer. Yeah. Max Scherzer is even when he's not having a good game, he finds a way to win. And that's not something, and to be, not to put, the rest of the league down or the other pitchers in the league down, but that's not something you hear about a starter very often anymore. That when he's not having a good game, he still finds a way to win ball games. Most starters nowadays.
Right now, he's had to. He hasn't had that Justin Verlander team, type team behind him with, the Altuves and Correas and Springer. I mean, Harper's still hitting 235.
Right.
So he's had to find a way to, okay, guys, just get me something. I got the rest.
Number 8
is mentality.
Number 8 is probably where we start getting into the surprises, right? I think we all know that the first 7 teams are teams that are going to the playoffs now. But number 8 is actually, if season ended tomorrow, is going to the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And that's the Seattle Mariners. Strong team, getting it done without the big name, getting it done without the big bat, which is important because if they do go to the playoffs, they're not going to have the big bat in Robinson Cano. And having fun and winning games, which is something we haven't seen from a Mariners team in a little while. My friend Jason Whitesett, who's the biggest Mariners fan I know and also the most negative Mariners fan I've ever met,
it's why I pitied him when I met him.
Still not ready to be positive about the Mariners because now he thinks that if he gets positive, it's going to help them lose. So he's just going to stay negative. He's going to stay negative and go from there. Number 9, the Los Angeles Angels. I mean, you got Shohei Ohtani doing his thing, really kind of proving people wrong, the naysayers wrong at this point. You got Mike Trout being
Prove me wrong. There is proving me wrong actively.
You got Mike Trout, who's just being Mike Trout. I mean, making his perennial MVP case as usual. And they're also having fun in LA. And I think that sort of being a bit of a circus this year with Shohei Ohtani getting all the media coverage that he's been getting has actually made them feel more free to have fun and have a good time down there. And I think it's a good atmosphere for them in the clubhouse, and it's showing in what they're doing on the field. The only problem that I have with even having Cleveland, Seattle, and LA in the top 10 is that I don't think any of them can beat Houston, Boston, or New York.
Right.
And of course, Colorado, in charge of the National League West, but like we said, that doesn't mean much. It does give them an opportunity to go to the playoffs, which gives them an opportunity to go deep, which is why we put them in the top 10. But that young pitching staff is going to have to do better. Guys like Trevor Story, Charlie Blackmon, Nolan Arenado, these guys are going to have to play at the level that they've been playing at, that they were playing at last year, right, in order to really round out that team.
I agree. And, let's go ahead. Let's take it through 15. I think just as easier, we can go ahead and do our top 15, bottom 15, 2 weeks, round it out. This is where, and you and I kind of went back and forth on this. I liked your point, so we moved into 11. The team I definitely didn't expect to see in this part of our power rankings, the Philadelphia Phillies. Getting Carlos Santana was a big deal from the Indians. We've seen the detriment it has been to Cleveland. And this team is just finding a way to roll. Granted, they're in third place now because the Nationals are rolling. This is the spot where I hope a young team with a young manager doesn't get discouraged. I'm not saying that to badmouth Gabe Kapler in any way. They're only a game and a half back. He's just
this time.
Right. It's just one of those moments where, hey, you know what? We still got this. This isn't anything we're doing wrong. This is a team who has been the division winner for the last 3 or 4 straight years, kind of getting their footing. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
This is the surprise team at number 12, the Oakland Athletics, the team that was my dark horse, my sleeper. You thought I was absolutely insane saying that this year, and they have so far proven me correct. A young ball club, a lot of young faces with some big sticks. And, they're at least hopefully making the Coliseum. They're filling it with sound. They're not going to fill it with people, but they're going to fill it with pop. The St. Louis Cardinals, a team that you and I both are, I don't say leery on, but they have a pretty good pitching staff, even with Wainwright out on the 60-day DL. They have absolutely no pop. Dexter Fowler hitting below 200. That lineup is just dismal, which is the odd. It's why we found it so weird that, we said with the Cubs is the Cubs have a really, really poor pitching staff, but they have some decent pop. That is not to say the Cubs are number 13.
No,
they are. The Cardinals are 13, and the Pirates keeping it in the Central sit at 14. Man, I said this that Craig Counsell and Brian Snitker are probably the 2 favorites right now for NL Manager of the Year. I'll tell you this right now, I get what we're saying because you want to see a team who's winning a division or making a push for the playoffs. Tip your cap to Clint Hurdle for the work that he has done with this ball club.
Right.
And 15 is
the Arizona Diamondbacks from my neck of the wood, and really based on the strength of my neck of the wood. Yes. We don't have a forest here. We've got one tree, so this is my neck of the wood. Don't look at me like that.
Neck of the cacti? Neck of the sand? I don't know.
But yeah, the Arizona Diamondbacks, man, and really on the strength of that hot start is the reason why I feel like if the season ended today, they could go on and they could beat some of these other National League teams because when Jake Lamb gets back to his old self, when Pollock comes back, when Goldie gets back to himself, and people are going to start having to pitch to Goldschmidt now that Lamb and soon Pollock are back in this lineup, and Daniel Descalso is really ripping. Goldie's going to get his bat back. I'm not worried about it.
What's sucking for me is that right now I'm kind of the poster child for why sports media is so much of just kind of a guessing game, and you hope that you're right. Because I said that Ohtani wouldn't be able to do it, and he is. Granted, I'm hanging my hat right now on the Phillies and the A's, which is a pretty good-sized hat rack. But I said I was really happy to see Alex Avila sign with Arizona. That would be a big piece. Yeah, he's got 98 plate appearances.
Sure.
He's batting 131.
Yeah, no, he's not good.
So if you're looking for a GM, don't call me.
Yeah, no, look somewhere else. Look somewhere right the heck else.
Hey, I would. You know what? I appreciate the realism, man. I'm good with it. Thank you. I appreciate the I want to give you some. No. You are absolutely right. Do not call my phone because you would pay me way too much for the job that I would do. If you're the Reds, the Orioles, call me. We might be able to do better than 17 wins. Just saying. I think I could do that part. Maybe.
So I think that's a strong top 15. I think it's a solid top 15. I think everybody's right where they should be in that top 15.
So here's a big question then. What do they think? What do you, the audience, think of our top 15? We'll say it again real quick. The Red Sox, the Astros, the Yankees, the Brewers, the Braves, top 5. Indians at 6, Nationals at 7, the Mariners at 8, the Angels at 9, the Rockies round out the top 10. Then the Phillies at 11, the Oakland Athletics at 12, the Cardinals at 13, the Pittsburgh Pirates at 14, and the Arizona Diamondbacks round out the first half of our power rankings. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do we have guys in the wrong order? That's for you to tell us coming into next week at OO Left Field on Twitter, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. Leave us a comment. If we're down with it, if it's a good one, you give us some good reasoning, you just might make the show. And we will let you know that you're on the show and be sure to tag you in it and mention you when we do next week's broadcast. Chris, I'm pretty confident where we're at. I agree with you. I mean, I think we both made some pretty good arguments pre-show to determine this whole 1 through 30 list. I'm excited to go 16 through 30. I think obviously there are some notable teams like the Central Division leading Cubs who have not yet been mentioned. I'm sure some people have their hairs raised, their ears are twitching. Why aren't they there? You'll find that out next week. Chris, before we go, any last words, my friend?
No.
Awesome. That's great.
I think I find myself without anything.
It appears that catching a bullpen has also worn out your vocal cords. I like this. Keep catching, please.
No, it's bad for my it's bad for my hips and it's bad for my knees. I'm going to stick to first base. I am playing a doubleheader tomorrow, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Me either. I'm sure your wife isn't either. She's going to have to hear you complain. Which, by the way, I'm sorry. So I need you to tell the story real fast before we leave because it is just that enjoyable. Because I mean, even in the big leagues, you can read a player's mouth. And they either say the word babe or the word kid when referring to any other teammate, regardless of age. You're welcome to not say irregardless. I know you hate that word because it's not an actual word. I just want you to tell the story briefly of when your wife first heard someone call you that, not knowing the baseball lingo, and the sheer perplexity that kind of emerged from her being.
Well, you kind of putting me on the spot here, yeah?
I am, but she's not in the room, so go for it, and I will make sure to let her know that this is on the show, so she will still hear it. So, yes, please tell us.
I got an atta-babe from a teammate, and it was kind of a atta what? I'm sorry. Excuse me? What have you just called him? Did he call you babe?
I do believe a male just referred to my husband as
babe. Yes, that's what I got. It was interesting. I'm trying to explain it. You know, it's the same as when I was in high school and I was playing first base, and one of my girlfriends asked me, "What do you guys talk about at first base?" Because she saw me talking with the other player, and I was like, "Oh, you know, mostly moms, mostly you, really." And she goes, "Me?" And I was like, "Well, he talks about you a lot. I don't talk about you." And she goes, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, we're just being you know, jerks to each other. So I talk about his mom. He talks about my girlfriend. It's an interpersonal relationship that you have to be there to really understand."
Which I will say is the massive difference between high school and the pros. The pros, they actually exchange pleasantries.
Right.
In high school, they just exchange
insults.
A holishness.
Yes. Yeah, insults. And, you know, playing in a men's league, we talk a lot. We exchange pleasantries, and we're talking about the game, talking about, you know, somebody get on base. And I'm like, "Hey, nice rip," you know, stuff like that. I'm nice to guys, but in high school, no, it's not like that. Not like that at all.
Oh, man. All right, guys. Again, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. It has been an absolute pleasure the last 2 years. We're going to keep on going with it. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Again, make sure to let us know, what do you think of the top 15? You'll get the next 15 next week. If your team wasn't mentioned on the top 15, well, they're obviously in the bottom half. I mean, for those of you who aren't math majors.
And don't feel bad because my team's down there.
Yes, they most certainly are and have been for a while now. But all that will come next week. Hopefully we don't have the Red Cross version of the show. We have some good stuff to talk about. Not going to bring in all the bench clearing junk in Pittsburgh. That's hopefully over. The slide's over. We're going to move on to bigger and better things. We are just about, a month and a half, or a month and I guess 5 weeks out now, not even a month and a half out from the All-Star break. We will get you guys ready for our kind of midpoint breakdowns of teams, what they need to do to go ahead and make that push, and our midseason awards. Good things to look forward to here in the next month or so on the show. Be sure to check out at View Mezzanine, View from Mezzanine with Tim Farmer for all of his he also have his power rankings as well. We will start working ours in with him every month, and the grulingtruth.net for all your sports-related needs. For Chris Ferry, I'm Graham, everyone here at the Grueling Truth Network. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time on Out of Left Field.